Hello and welcome. My name is Danny Stone and thank you for joining me today for another Victoria 3 video. So the day is currently Thursday the 17th of June and we all know what that means. It's officially Dev Diary Day and I'm always super excited for 6 o'clock Central European time to come along because I know there's going to be a juicy Dev Diary for us about the game, and without any further ado, let's dive right into this one. So today's topic is all about goods and it does seem very interesting indeed. But without any further ado, let's dive right in. So, happy Thursday and welcome back to yet another Victoria 3 Dev Diary, this time on the subject of goods. Goods are a core economic feature of Victoria 3, just as they were in previous Victoria games, and come in a wide variety of types. Also, as in previous Victoria games, the manufacturing of goods by pops and buildings is how the vast majority of the wealth in Victoria 3 is created. Fundamentally, the unit of goods represent a quantity of a certain type of natural resource, a manufactured good or intangible service, and come attached with a price tag. This price varies both in base, so a single unit of tanks is pricier than a single unit of fabric, and an actual market value, as the prices of goods change depending on supply and demand. And underneath here we have a selection of goods that are bought and sold in the British market. And all of these goods, by the looks we can see, we've got like wood, fish, some belting. Is that for like calling in servants? It must be. Then you've got meat, cheese, I think that is. You've got some fruit and veg. You've got production kind of tools and stuff. And they all have a set price. And of course, these buildings are built by your pops in your different buildings. So I'm guessing the wood from the lumber yards, or lumberjacks in the lumber yards, and then of course the other more kind of sophisticated kind of productions, or the more complex productions, such as the kind of clothes. You're obviously going to have basic materials and then transform these basic materials to make the end product. And all these goods, they have prices, and these prices differentiate depending on the good and, of course, depending on the market in which they are being sold, well, bought and sold in, which is very interesting. And obviously it does say that, of course, a single unit of tanks is pricier than a single unit of fabric, which does make sense. I mean, to make a tank, I'm guessing it's going to make a lot more cash to make it than it is to make a piece of fabric. So here we can see the different kind of goods. On the first line, I'm going to guess this is going to be the sell orders and the buy orders. And of course, the sell orders on the first side is basically how many units you have to sell. And the buy order is going to be the amount of people of people wanting to buy the said goods. So of course, if your kind of sell kind of orders are higher than your buy orders, it means that you have a surplus of the good, you have more than the demand, and of course that good is going to be cheaper. But obviously if it is the opposite, for example, for these clothes here, for example, there's like 915 kind of sell orders for a 3.6 thousand demand, so you basically have minus 2,000, nearly minus 3,000 in the deficit for the demand, which means, of course, that good is going to be pricier, and it reflects in its price. Of course, again, the basis of supply and demand. If you don't have enough supply but more demand, then, of course, the price is going to be higher, and then the opposite is true. The more supply you have and the less of the demand, well, the cheaper the good's going to be because you have loads of it floating around and nobody's wanting to buy it. So, of course, this is definitely going to kind of determine the price in the market. Now, from what we gather from this first bit is that the price of the good will not be a fixed price for all the different markets. Of course, all these different regional markets have their own supply and demand, which means that, for instance, a unit of fish in the Great British market is not probably going to be worth the same as a unit of fish in the Chinese market. So all of this should be taken into account. We have like the basic goods seem to be the cheapest ones, so kind of basic units of woods, fish, and then as you go down to more complex goods, it gets a little bit more expensive, like these kind of industrial tools. Fruit and veg, of course, is kind of exotic back in the time, especially kind of exotic fruits, I think, so that would explain why the price is a little bit high here. I have no idea what this is there, absolutely none. These some kind of clothes, I have no idea what kind of clothes they are. What's this? Envelopes, maybe, I'm guessing. But anyway, as the good gets more complex and more like transforming a certain good into something else through production, then I'm guessing it's going to be more expensive than just like basic goods. But anyway, these are 4 broad categories of goods. So we've got staple goods, luxury goods, industrial goods, and military goods. Of course, of these, staple luxury goods are mainly consumed by Pops, and industrial military goods are mainly consumed by buildings. But there are no hard rules here. You will find buildings using luxury goods and Pops purchasing industrial goods when and where it makes sense for them to do so. So it seems here that we're going to kind of telling us that you have staple and luxury goods are mainly consumed by Pops, not all the time. So staple goods, it's got to be like your basic necessities in terms of food, wheat, I'm guessing, and then like fish, and that would be like your staple goods, like the basic necessities that you like kind of Pops need to survive. And then of course your luxury goods, it's going to be like porcelain, ceramics, all the kind of stuff the high society wants, or the high kind of life wants, or the nobles and the rich people. And they all want these luxury goods, and this is all, of course, consumed by Pops. And it seems to say that industrial and military goods are consumed by buildings. So, of course, I don't know, for example, if I wanted to make, I don't know, like, we're going through a tank here, okay? You wanted to make a tank. It did say that a tank would cost more, obviously, than a piece of cloth up here. But if you wanted to make a tank, I'm guessing you're going to have to need ammunition, you're going to have to need raw materials, and then you're going to need to assemble all these raw materials and finish and turn this into the finished product, which would be the tank. So, of course, these industrial goods and military goods are all combined, used by these buildings, in which Pops work, where you are going to be making the finished product. But it says there's no hard rules. There is some times where you'll find like buildings that will be using luxury goods, and Pops purchasing industrial goods when it makes sense for them to do so. So it doesn't like fully, how to put it, mean that your Pops will only be using staple and luxury goods. There may be a few exceptions. Staple goods are everyday goods that Pops need to live, so I was right about that, such as food to eat, wood to heat their homes, and clothes to wear. Staple goods tend to be purchased in vast quantities by poor and middle-class Pops, with richer Pops generally shunning them for the more luxury variants. So yeah, of course, like staple goods, again, just the basic stuff to survive, which does make sense. Grain, possibly the most staple of all staple goods. Well, it's hard to dispute that, because grain is basically the basis of like the food diet, so of course it is the most staple of staple goods. And so what we've got here, so we have, of course, the good, and it's slightly cheaper. You can have the price. You see it's at £17.1. We can see that it's rising. We can also see the overall market price fluctuations. So you can see over the course of time what the difference in price is. So it seems it started off at a higher price, and all of a sudden they had some kind of, I don't know, some wheat crash in the Great British market, which lowered the price down considerably. It went from probably about 25 to about 10. That is a massive drop. And then kind of slowly risen again over the course of the year, and then stabled out in towards the 26th of May, 1836. So you can actually see the different variations in price. You'll probably might be able to see what conditions these changes at some point. It might be interesting to be able to see that. You can see the sell orders and the buy orders. So this again comes back up here where you've got the sell orders and the buy orders. So of course, the more you have to sell than people wanting to buy, then of course the price is lower. And then of course, if you don't have enough to sell but more people want to buy, then the price is higher. Again, it's all based on supply and demand. So we've got the amount of sell orders within the Great British market. So you've got 13,300 sell orders, and you have 9,740 buy orders. So here again, you have more people selling than more people buying, which then, of course, means that the price of the grain is cheaper and kind of going to lower the price, which is fairly interesting. You can see who are selling it. So at the moment, building production, British market. So out of the 13,300 sellers, you have the majority of it built by production buildings within the Great British market, so the farms and stuff that are producing the wheat. And then, of course, we have the buy orders here, which you can see the amount of people wanting to buy, so 9,740. And within this number of buy orders here, it looks like 8,840 are from Pops in the British market, so Pops are going to be buying the wheat in order to feed themselves. And then, of course, you have the rest, 903 of them, are taken from buildings in the British market, so building consumption. So maybe there's going to be, I don't know, bakers or something like that. They're going to be transforming the wheat into flour and then flour into bread. Again, this is all speculation. I have no idea, but I'm just trying to reason around the lines of kind of having a basic good and then transforming it and then popping out a finished article, which is all the basis of industrialization. But anyway, moving on. Luxury goods are the things that Pops do not necessarily need, but definitely want, such as fine foods, luxury drinks like tea and coffee, or fine clothes made from Chinese silk. Luxuries tend to be more profitable to produce than staple goods, but depend on having a customer base with money. A poor factory worker isn't going to be buying a whole lot of mahogany cabinets. Well, it does make sense. So, of course, the luxury goods for the more richer people of society, and of course they're going to be like more complicated to make. Of course, you're going to have to transform various amount of kind of goods and turn them into the finished product. But of course, they are way pricier. But you must have, of course, the pops, or the amount, or a certain amount of pops that are rich enough in order to consume these goods. Because if you just basically churn out a load of ceramics, but your nation is a full-on communist factory-working utopia, well, then of course they're not going to have the money to buy the ceramics, and then just be flooding the market with ceramics that aren't going to be sold. Does make sense. So here's an example: porcelain again, WIP work in progress. You can never have too many painted Ming vases, I always say. So here we have got the porcelain. Instead of seeing like how much are in the British market here, it's the same kind of tab up here. You've got state, region, British market usage. Here we're straight on the usage. So this tells you what it's been, or how it's being produced, I think, by the looks of it. So we've got porcelain can be produced by the glassworks, which is like the building, I think, that you're going to need to have in order to produce the porcelain. And then production methods, you've got glasswork ceramics and glasswork bone china. So it looks like there's two different methods to make porcelain. So I don't know, or do you need to combine them both? Do you need ceramics and bone china to make porcelain, or can you make porcelain out of just ceramics and then porcelain out of the bone china? Or maybe you need to combine both methods into one. Again, I don't know. I'm nowhere near an expert on porcelain. But you can see how much it's been used by. Consumed by pops with wealth levels of 15 to 99 as part of the luxury item need category. So this basically sets the amount of wealth that the pops need to have. So I'm guessing that there's going to, by the looks of these levels, I mean, Paradox games do like to have levels. So I'm guessing that the wealth range from pops are going to go from 0 to 100 or 0 to 99. And of course, the pops of level 15 to 99 are the ones that are going to be buying these porcelain goods. Anybody with any wealth lower than the 15 aren't going to be able to buy it by the looks of it. Okay, interesting. Industrial goods such as iron, coal, rubber and lead, whose main purpose is often to be converted into other more profitable goods. Securing a steady supply of vital industrial goods is crucial to industrialization and growing the GDP of your country. Okay, so this is an example of an industrial good, so tools. So it was industrial tools. And these are tools you're going to be using, I think, or that you may need in your buildings. I mean, this is going to be typically something consumed by the buildings. So in order to make a certain product, you're going to have the tools to transform a base product and churn out the end product at the end of the transformation process. And for this, we're going to need these tools, and it looks like they're here. Now, these are slightly more expensive. Again, they cost way more, £50.4. It looks like the price is rising, and I'm guessing that green arrow, it determines if it's rising or falling. I'm guessing red arrow down is going to be prices overall lowering, like going down in this market. But here it's quite expensive, 50.4. You can see the price as well. It's fairly stable by the looks of it from the 6th of Jan 1836 to the 26th of May 1836. So over the course of the first couple of months, it's been pretty damn stable. It had a little peak and then it's kind of stabled out and then gone down a bit and then slowly rising. I really like the kind of graphs. I really do like this, like kind of analyzing the fluctuation of market prices on certain goods, and that is something that I'm going to be really looking forward to. I'm a bit of a I would like to say a graph nerd, or a bit of a number nerd. I do like number crunching in Paradox games. I like kind of trying to min-max stuff, and kind of watching all these kind of fluctuations over time is something I'm really going to be looking forward to. So here we can see the sell orders, so the amount of people selling, or the amount of like selling orders and the amount of people buying. So of course, selling less than the buy orders, which of course determines the price in the market, which is higher than it would be if it was the other way around. If there was more sell orders than buy orders, then the price would be lower. But here, there's not enough to kind of fulfill the demand. So there's only 70 being sold, but 111 being bought. So yeah, it's really cool. The supply and demand thing is just super cool to have it represented in the game, and I think it's going to be absolutely wicked. We can see that it's being, these goods, these like industrial goods or tools, whatever, being produced by the buildings in the Swedish market, within the Swedish market. Of course, to build these tools, what you're going to need, I'm guessing you're going to need wood, you're going to need iron, you're going to need metals, of course, and then bring them together within a building, and then, of course, churn out these tools. And they're being produced here in the Swedish market, and there's 70 of them, and consumed by buildings in the Swedish market. And it's just basically the whole consumption is through the buildings. So, I mean, I guess that here, since there's not enough, like, kind of tools to be sold than there is people wanting to buy, is this going to affect the efficiency at which you produce goods? I mean, we need these tools to transform a base product or a base good into an end product through the industrialization process and transforming of a kind of a basic resource. If we don't have enough of them, I mean, we don't have enough selling tools here compared to the people wanting to buy, does this directly affect the speed at which you churn out goods? I would like to know that. And I think that it is going to be the case. Knowing Paradox, it'll be highly unlikely that it's not going to be the case. Anyway, next, military goods. So it's the next category. Military goods are goods such as small arms, ammunition, and warships that are used by military buildings to arm and supply the armies and navies of the 19th century nations. The more technologically advanced the army or navy, the more complex and expensive military goods they will need. And I'm told that soldiers tend to perform better if they're given ammunition for their guns. Oh, well, no crap, Sherlock. So ammunition. And here we go, this is an example of a military good, and this is going to be used by barracks and naval bases. Of course, barracks to supply your soldiers with the bullets for the guns, and of course, naval bases, of course, to supply the gun batteries, or on the ships maybe with ammunition, and maybe even the marines on the ship. But the question I also have is, do you have to produce the guns? Is it just kind of a broad thing where you just produce ammunition and then it kind of gets distributed to the barracks and the naval bases? Or do we have to produce weapons for the ammunition to be loaded in? Or is it just kind of been grouped into an overall thing called ammunition, and then everybody just has a gun and then you just distribute ammunition to everybody? That's something I would like to know. But it can be produced by the munition plant, so it's a specific building type that produces it. Production methods. So, munition plants, percussion caps, and munition plants, explosive shells. Again, do you need to build both and mix them up and assemble them to make ammunition in the munitions plant? Or are they two different types of munitions? I honestly don't know. I'm not very proficient with anything to do with munitions and stuff. So, do you need to combine both to make the ammunition, or are they both two different types of ammunition that can be made? I don't know. And again, can be used by the barracks and the naval base. We'll be returning to the topic of goods in later dev diaries when discussing related mechanics such as markets, pop needs, goods substitution, and cultural obsessions. But for now, I bid you all adieu for a while, as next week, Mikhail will provide you with a dev dive about something we've been teasing for some time now, production methods. Okay, that's good, and it looks like we're going to be finding out what this is. If it's like two things you need to combine together to produce a good within a factory, or are they two different ways of producing the said good at the top? I mean, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see as well, like, kind of cultural obsessions. Maybe certain cultures are going to be demanding a specific type of good that their culture is based on. Maybe. I mean, I don't have an example here. I mean, for example, well, I do actually. What about tea? I mean, the British will love tea. I mean, I'm tea crazy. I mean, do the British have a cultural obsession of tea? And it means that they are desperately needing it, and you're going to need to constantly try to find a steady supply of cheap tea to supply the nation. Maybe. Good substitution. That obviously kind of rings a bell with if you don't have enough of the specific type of good to do something, maybe you can substitute it with another. Again, I'm thinking, I mean, in my mind here, I'm going towards, I mean, a good example is World War I, World War II, where they were rationing and wanting enough food. Well, they had substitute food called ersatz, and it's just like basically was substituting coffee, substituting butter. Is that something that is going to be implemented? Pop needs, of course, we've been talking about that in previous dev dives, of course. Certain pops need certain things, so the poorer pops are just going to do the basic stuff, the more wealthy pops, the more luxury stuff, and then of course markets, we've already talked about that a little bit, but all good. I'm very looking forward now to next Thursday. I'm always very excited when you get the first dev diary on Thursday, and then you kind of get really excited going through it, then it finishes, and you go, oh no, I've got to wait another week. But I'll wait another week, and I'm going to be looking forward to it again, and I am seriously starting to get hyped for the game here. I think the thing that got me today is I just love seeing fluctuations of prices and trying to have an effect on the price of goods, and my actions as a state can determine how much something is worth somewhere. I mean, I just like that. That is just something that really resonates with me. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for joining me. If you enjoyed things, and of course, please don't hesitate to hit that like button down below. And if you want to see some more Victoria 3 content, then please do consider subscribing to the channel for more. And when all that's said and done, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll hopefully catch you all in the next one. Bye for now.